these different things. Everything points north. You got to follow the money because we can get to Abaco. I've been joined by my once co-host and my friend, C. Allen Johnson. Let me give an headphone so I can hear you. I don't have no headphone. 1 second. Let me get a headphone. I've been joined by C. Allen Johnson. And we are C. Allen Johnson. I dubbed this show Everything Points North. First of all, welcome to National Access.
Thank you for having me once again. Good morning, Bahamas.
Everything points north, and I've made it a declaration over the last almost 6 or 7 weeks, maybe 2 months, that the entire election process will go through the north. And in particular, Abaco and Grand Bahama. And for the most part, it seems as if we never learned our lesson from Dorian. I also said, and by the way, guys, I have to say this again, this is an opinion show, that the greatest logistical nightmare in our country's history was the way we handled Dorian. Dorian was a nightmare. The way it was handled, the way it was managed, and to this day, we don't even have an account of all the resources spent for over a year and a half, almost going on 2 years, by the Ministry of Ministry of Disaster. I wonder if that's a good name for a ministry. Ministry of Disaster. Anyhow, C. Allen, you come in on this because I did Grand Bahama for the most part already as we get into Abaco, but let's do some Grand Bahama.
Well, the greatest loss that is not being spoken about is not the land and the resources. It's the being unable to account for probably hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that was in the north. When you consider Grand Bahama and Abaco combined, that we've been unable to account for. So the human capital, the loss and the pain and suffering of families carries the greatest impact that we somehow seem to have lost over the last year, 18 months actually.
My God.
Approach another hurricane season. The wonderful thing is that, when you say everything points north, the whole compass, the whole aspect of whenever you set out on a journey, you must know where due north is to be able to plot your direction. And so not only has we've been ignoring the due north on the compass, it has been also on our economic development compass. I've heard a lot of people talk about the economic development of the Bahamas. They talk about Andros being this and that, when Celine, and it's wonderful because, I found that a lot of the political leader and activists operate on something I call P squared, P squared, pirating and parroting, stealing ideas and parroting it, repeating it. And I hear them talk about Andros being the bread basket of the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. Well, when Celine said it, it was true. But since 1992, the world has transformed, beginning with the first digital revolution. In fact, in the 80s, when we were moving towards getting seated in our independence, began the second technology revolution began then. In 1992 began the first digital revolution. And so those things of the past, like Mars and so the old weapons is no longer useful in this new dispensation. And so when you look at the 700 islands and keys, removing New Providence, in fact, we could focus on New Providence. New Providence does not have the infrastructure to handle the growth that has occurred in the Bahamas over the last 30 years. But however, Grand Bahama has been and always was capable of doing that. In 1955, or whenever they revealed the plan of Grand Bahama in the 60s, it was stated that Grand Bahama then was actually prepared to handle 250,000 individuals in Freeport alone. And, we say I'm talking about Freeport alone in that respect. Well, the population of the Bahamas was around 200,000 at the time of our independence. So that basically means you could have removed everyone out of New Providence and not even break a sweat in moving them to Freeport. Since technology have expanded since then, building technology, we could build vertical and we could provide fire suppression and a lot of different things. So Grand Bahama as it stands right now, not Grand Bahama, let's talk about Freeport as it stands right now, can hold probably about 5 million people if you utilize the technology. What I mean by that, let's look at Singapore. Oftentimes people like to quote Singapore, 6 million people. For those may not be aware, Singapore is only 30 square miles larger than Freeport. I didn't say larger than Grand Bahama. Singapore is about 30 square miles larger than Freeport and has 6 million people. Freeport is infrastructurally superior to Singapore at their birth. And so when you look at the potential of what the Bahamas is capable of, you must look to Freeport and Grand Bahama as a whole. Now you must look to the north for the actual economic rebirth and reemergence of Grand Bahama. And if you want to use an analogy from the biblical perspective, we were submerged, and it says that when you come up as a new creature. And so Grand Bahama and Abaco were submerged, and we have been rebirthed as new creatures in the eyes of God to fulfill the potential for the economic development and revitalization of the Bahamas.
As the rebirth taking place, or is it process? Are we in the process of seeing the?
No, you don't have to ask us to take place. Dorian is proof that it has. The question, as a pastor, you yourself can ask: Does the process of birth makes you a new man or woman instantly? That it says. Remember, it says now. The whole concept is a new birth, and it takes a while for a child in a new birth to steady its foot, to gain its voice.
So Dorian would have come in, in your opinion, because it's also mine, for a new birth process. Dorian would come to do a cleansing, to do a washing, almost like what the flood would have done in the time of Noah,
to reveal the past, wipe it clean. And that's where we are. And so essentially, you could almost imagine that Noah, instead of building forward, would try to build back. He would have tried to build back those that was wipe clean the earth. And that's essentially what you saw the government has been seeking to do. You see it inside of the hotel that you speak of. They're trying to restore the past. You see it as we talk about the economic recovery. We're running back to cruise ships. We're running back to the old hotels of Bahama and Atlantis and the likes. It's like, literally speaking, they're trying to build from memory the past, which was meant to be cleansed, to be wiped clean.
That is scary. They're trying to build from memory.
Yeah.
In other words, only what they know.
Yes.
So there's no prophetic understanding of how to take it forward. Only what they.
In fact, they're trying to build something that was built for the foundation was laid for the Stafford Sands. And we just built a shanty town economy around the Stafford Sands model. Right. I've heard so many politicians and aspirants and candidates running around over the last year talking about this. We need to diversify. We only need to look at the world's largest economy. And these individuals could have very easily just pick up Google and ask for the 10 largest economy in the world. Mm-hmm. Or what is the 4 different models of economic, which is the 4 or 5, depending on which mindset you use, the 4 or 5 different economic models that is used in the world. And they would find that they would find that they not even at the game, they're not even on the way to the park. Wow. Because when you talk about tourism, right? Tourism is the 10th largest industry fiscally in the world. And when you begin to look at the other 9 industries, I don't know them off the top of my head. I can very easily Google them for you. But when you look at the other 9 industries, you have to ask, if you're going to leave your number 10th position, are you going to number 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1? Or are you going to go down to number 11 or number 12 or whatever you're going to? The mere fact that when you look at the tourism model is a $1 trillion, multi-trillion-dollar economy when you look at the whole aspect of hospitality. And the mere fact that we have only had one hospitality, one of servitude, even when we first began tourism, I did a survey. My company did a survey about 3 years ago or so, right before the Free National Movement's victory, where for a client who's looking at the Bahamas tourism product and its economic viability. it was said is one an epiphany came, and I've spoken about this on radio, is that one thing the Bahamas offered was sun, sand, sea, and service. That that survey of tourists and individuals within the country said that the sun, the sand, and the sea were natural occurrences, natural resources, can't be changed. However, it said that for almost a decade, we had continuously slipped to the point that we no longer provided service. We just provided a location of sun, sand, and sea. And so service was what the key and the linchpin for which to develop our economy. And that service applied across not just tourism, but it also applied across banking and the services that we get.
Yes.
We no longer provide service in the Bahamas. We simply provide a location for where events occur without the inclusion of Bahamians. And so when you look now and you say, as it stands right now, maybe about 100,000 individuals will be facing economic insecurity. 100,000 individuals, and it may be as much as 50% or more of Bahamian families, because the economy has shifted, whether we like it or not. And what we think is coming back isn't. Period. Okay.
Let's get to. I want to focus on the north. I want to focus on Grand Bahama. I want to focus on the redesign of Grand, but I want to talk about this in a political sense. I know we can get into the theoretical understanding of how to redevelop the economy, but obviously, I've been spoken to several persons who are vying for the north. The incumbents are very concerned that this is going to be a judgment on them. Dr. Minnis and the FNM is going to be marked on the curve. People don't vote governments in, they vote governments out. You are in the north in Grand Bahama. You're in Grand Bahama every day. As a matter of fact, you walk to Burger King. You would know then what the word is on the ground in Grand Bahama. All five gone. What's the reality based on the fact that Grand Bahama would have gone through Dorian, they would have gone through the flood? You talk about the rebirth. Are all five gone? Is there a guarantee that the PLP is going to walk in and just swoop up every day?
There's no guarantee that any political party on Grand Bahama now is in any position. The Grand Bahamians over 2 decades, and I see a lot of people that don't understand. They believe our problems began with Dorian. We have been going through this economic throes of the economic impact for almost 2 decades now.
Yes, way before Dorian.
And this is why, with a lot of people, don't understand where the cries for Grand Bahama has lied. If you go back to Wilma, I think the twin hurricanes of 2004, it took us about 3 years to basically get our footing as to exactly what had happened. And so we tried the FNM and we've tried the PLP. When you talk about voter apathy, it is existing on Grand Bahama, but we almost must take into consideration when you talk about Grand Bahama and Abaco. I'm well informed on Abaco, having family and a tremendous amount of properties under my advisement that has been damaged by Dorian that we have yet to even clean up, not less begin the process of rebuilding. And so when you look at it, what came is the insult to the injury for Grand Bahamians and now Abaconians, the dialogue that goes on as if to one's failure of us as an island or islands is greater than the failure of another. You know, it's almost like you have a 10-foot ditch to cross, and if you don't jump across, you die. And you have 2 individuals on the way down because neither of them jumped to 10 feet across the ditch, arguing about who jumped further. One is screaming that they jumped 4 feet, the other one is screaming they jumped 4.5 feet across a 10-foot ditch. And so Grand Bahama within itself, and it's been coined, and you've heard myself as well as Greg Moss used to coin the Grand Deception, because of many of the things that individuals actually demand for the new Bahamas, whether it be municipal government, whether it be land reform, whether it be energy reform. All of those things lies within Grand Bahama now and has existed in law since 1990.
So for the most part, then you're saying that in terms of in terms of there's no the status quo parties. Grand Bahama used to be the magic city for the free national movement.
It is it's actually Grand Bahama is defined as F&M country.
F&M country. So F&M country is now under threat. Would you say that?
No, the F&M. If you looked at what had happened previously, the F&M country was actually somewhat continuously. The influence was somewhat continuously diminished. What happened is after a disastrous 5 years under the previous administration, where they actually ignored the pleas and demands of the individuals from Grand Bahama, what they did was they made a decision to give all 5 of the seats back to what they call F&M country, including the PLP seats, when most people considered that the PLP held. And essentially, there was a sense of hope that if the F&M government win with 5 individuals sitting on Grand Bahama as members of parliament, that there would be focused attention on Grand Bahama, because during the F&M's actual campaign, you only need to go back to their platform as well as their campaign. The actual economic revitalization in the Bahamas was directly and indirectly tied into it. If you go back to 2007, Hubert Alexander Ingram said there'll be no economic recovery of the Bahamas without Grand Bahama. If you go back to 2012, Perry Gladstone Christie said there will be no economic recovery of the Bahamas without Grand Bahama. And so hence came 2017, with the current Prime Minister saying there'll be no economic recovery of the Bahamas without Grand Bahama. And so that is an absolute fact that very few economists or anybody can argue against, because no other island in the Bahamas possess the infrastructural needs for the 21st century, for the third technology revolution, the second digital revolution, third technology revolution, and for the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth social revolution actually resides on Grand Bahama. That's the infrastructure. But you often hear the Prime Minister, and you heard him mention this in his economic recovery report, in his charge to the Economic Recovery Committee, that he wanted a green economy, a blue economy, an orange economy, a knowledge economy, a digital economy, and a conceptual economy. And they have went the way of the promise of freedom of information, anti-corruption, integrity, accountability, term limits, finance reform. All of the promises, they all went along that way. If you remember, part of the F&M platform was an ecotourism destination in East Grand Bahama, technology and industry in the central of Grand Bahama, and cultural and heritage in West Grand Bahama. That has went away with nothing happening. The only thing that happened on Grand Bahama is a failed attempt on putting the island of Grand Bahama, including the Freeport under the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, into the hands of private persons, which happens to be some of the oligarchs of the Bahamas.
So, in your opinion, C. Alan Johnson, because I want to get to politics, man, I want to talk politics. Politics in the context that I'm trying to find out where the politics is right now in Grand Bahama. The F&M, the PLP, what are you hearing on the ground, sir?
Well, you can put the fact that there is no PLP on Grand Bahama as of now, and nor has it been for almost 4 years. But the mere fact that there's been no PLP presence, the fact that the F&M has been absent in action, makes them equal to the Progressive Liberal Party.
So Obi Wilcombe is on the ground in West Grand Bahama and Bimini, West Grand Bahama. He's working his tail off trying to get the nomination from his own party that he carries the philosophy for. The PLP has not named.
On the ground or amongst PLPs, there's a significance of the two.
I believe there is a significance, and I know how you go with words. You're very good. You're a semantics king, and so let me avoid your semantics by asking you.
No, you're the one using the semantics. I want to use the actual language.
I'm more gymnastic than semantics, but for the most part, though, there is no PLP or F&M strength right now from what you see.
No, there's no political party showing any presence on Grand Bahama, and that is why you see Malcolm Pine is so well heard. Is because he has become the voice in the wilderness that pairs the silence of inaction or silence through no presence. And so he's become the lone voice screaming for Grand Bahama. Now, when you talk from a position of effectiveness, the minister, the current minister of agriculture and fisheries, has been making to the rest of the Bahamas, it may be silent, but Michael Pintard has been extremely impactful in all 5 of the constituencies.
Is he safe? Is Michael Pintard safe in Grand Bahama, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think Michael Pintard would probably be safe in at least 4 of the 5 seats. And I would say that even in challenging Michael Pine, he would have the slight edge in that constituency. And that's
Michael would have a slight over Michael. Over Michael Pine.
Yes, that's how impactful he has been. Let me explain to you what impactfulness is, because way before the Dorian or anything else, he had taken the position that there's no colors in the aid and
independent approach
that he provides to individuals on Grand Bahama. He listens to your 5 constituencies. It's just that since Dorian, he somewhat seemed more impactful and effectiveness without the media. On occasion, you'll see a slight broadcast of what he is doing. But when you look at the fact that right here in Central Grand Bahama where I am, more people know Michael Pintard than they know Aram Lewis as far as delivering on what the Free National Movement promised concerning a sense of security.
Wow, that is so sad. That is so sad. My friend Aram Lewis is now the Minister of State in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. He took over for, is he Minister of State or is he Minister?
He's Minister.
He's Minister, no more state. He's speaking, he's squarely in charge of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. He took over from the Nisha rule. So Aram Lewis is not getting the traction in Grand Bahama. I want to get to Abaco, but I just want one more question. What do you think ever happened in the Oban files?
Well, the Oban file is simple but complicated. First of all, the Oban files
you can keep it simple.
First it was signed. There was no previous signing as said by the Prime Minister, or it was signed before and we came back to sign. This was ceremonial. Anyone in cabinet as well as the secretary to the cabinet knows, and you could look at the subsequent file that they submit to Parliament, has signatures on every single page except for that page, the substitute page. When you align that page, that signature page, they brought back to Parliament to show that with this file was signed previously, it does not align digitally to a document that was signed at once. So you would have 30, 40 pages of a document that shows a forgery on the signature page. And so we know that that was the first time that was signed and was a forgery. So essentially, and if you believe it or not, this actually ties into Reese Chipman, because all of the files for that particular Oban disappeared. It could only disappear. I want people to understand that file disappeared out of the office of the Prime Minister under the Prime Minister himself, Hubert Alexander Minnis. And it's the same thing with the files from the Antiquities and Monuments Committee. A lot of people don't understand the assets in East Grand Bahama. Some of those assets would fall under the Antiquities and Monument Committee. And so the file in Oban would have shown the communication between the Prime Minister himself and Oban as it go forward. Because remember, the best commission, which also happens to be with Oban, is in the office of the Prime Minister, which is under the direct control of the Prime Minister. So every file that has disappeared out of the office of Prime Minister came off the desk of the Prime Minister, not just in some office.
So the Prime Minister number the file?
Absolutely. I would say the Prime Minister has to file.
Oh, God, you don't say things like that.
I mean, listen to me.
I got to get down.
I want you to listen to this. There was no original file in BESS. There was no original file in the Antiquities and Monument Committee. There was none. There was communications going back and forth. There was notes made in the borders of these files.
You don't believe the file been missing?
Because one file would have to see. There wouldn't have been one file missing. You would have multiple copies of this file missing because you have communication going back and forth. You understand? So you have a copy in the Prime Minister's desk. You'll have a copy of everybody who's communicating. So there is a trail of communications. Everybody wasn't walking to the prime minister's desk to sign and write whatever notes. You had communications going back and forth. So there's no folder essentially that could be disappeared. You claiming all of the files for Oban is disappeared? It's impossible. It is impossible.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Listen, I got some serious issue. I believe that Abaco leads the pack, even Grand Bahama, when it comes to the way the election will run. I believe that the greatest travesty Remwood Bell shows what they challenged me, Remwood and Darren Henfield challenged me one day by the House Assembly, telling me I used the word atrocity when it comes to the way things were handled. The fact that I believe that the greatest atrocity took place in Abaco as it relates to not only the human bodies, the way everything was actually handled, all of the logistics. I believe that even ahead of Grand Bahama when it comes to the political season, I believe that Abaco has the greatest narrative. Do you agree?
No, they don't greater. I think it's like asking which apple is redder. They from the same tree. There's degree, but the problem is that both Grand Bahama and Abaco suffered identical losses. Okay, so I mean, is the debt of 500 any more greater than the debt of 100 people? Are we going to put value on lives?
No, so, I think that's not. I'm not thinking in terms of the quantity of debt.
But the economic damage for Abaco is these are twin cities. You cannot separate them. These are Siamese twins.
I agree with you. That's why we're talking about everything points north. I'm not discounting the fact that they are twin cities. But what I believe would have happened in Abaco, and the way Abaco was handled in terms of the bodies in the container.
That's okay.
The fact that there are notations coming from the former Minister of Health saying that there were way more bodies than was led to believe.
See, so then you're looking at the problem in a mirror effect. We should ask, there are bodies that's missing from Abaco that families have not been giving satisfaction, even for bodies that was found on Abaco. They've not been given death certificates or even that have not been found. Let's now look at Grand Bahama. The exact same occurrences is happening on Grand Bahama. The homes on Abaco was destroyed and not replaced. Homes on Grand Bahama has been destroyed and not replaced. The economy on Abaco has been wiped and nothing has been done to rebuild it. The economy on Grand Bahama has been wiped and nothing is done to it. See,
so why see, Alan, then are we not getting this narrative from the opposition groupings? Why aren't we getting this narrative? Why are they Nassau centric for the most part, walking up and down, PLP all the way, DNA, DNA. Why aren't we getting this narrative? Change is not coming. Change is here. Why aren't we getting the narrative of the real stories?
Well, on the FNM and the PLP, I would simply put that they don't have the what you would say, the integrity, the ability to speak to these two islands, being the fact that in good times they have failed us, and so now we're in critical times. Now it turns back to the fact that if you begin to speak to Abaco and Grand Bahama, you will now realize that you're now talking about rebuilding the Bahamian economy, and you must address those. In the absence of having concrete plans and a strategy on how to rebuild, because you're not rebuilding Abaco and Grand Bahama, you're rebuilding the Bahamian economy when you force these two islands.
Yes.
When you put the DNA and the COI and the KGM and the RGM and the BDM and all these individuals, for those of us who have studied the Bahamas as well as Grand Bahama and Abaco intimately, you wonder to what are they speaking to? Because clearly they are showing when they speak the arrogance of ignorance of this destination. In fact, many of the activists and other people who speak about Grand Bahama don't have a clue about Grand Bahama or Abaco. To find out what is it that you're talking about rebuilding. They come up with these imaginary things about what to do with the hotel and what to do about this, what to do with the Port Authority, what to do with the Abaconians. And it's like they have no market. I'd put to you that the Free National Movement and the PLP do know the nuances of Abaco and Grand Bahama and what may be necessary to develop it. But here's the problem. You can't rebuild something that no longer exists. The key word is rebuild. Rebuild is to take something that's still there and rebuild it. The economies of Abaco and Grand Bahama must be built from scratch. There's no rebuild of something that's been wiped clean. Okay? Rebuild is in essence mean that something was here before. Okay, that's all. It doesn't mean so when you come back to try to rebuild using these old economic models, this is why for 18 months you've had no active participation of the recovery and just using the word rebuild again of these two islands. You have had no plans and no idea what to do. Remember now, there's some 13,480 homes based on which in the public domain of homes that has been destroyed or damaged on these two islands.
So
homes times that by people. Okay, since the government like to use 4 people in every home, right, for their feeding program, then use the same 4 figures for 14,000 homes, right, and that puts you at 56,000 people that has been dislocated, that's facing housing insecurity that no one has yet to speak to in regards to it. And this is why you see the shanty towns that has appeared in Abaco, and that's where the emphasis is put. But the only reason shanty towns have not appeared on Grand Bahama is because we have hundreds of abandoned homes and apartments. If not, shanty towns would have been built here on Grand Bahama also.
Okay, so here's the challenge, right? The PLP named a candidate for North Abaco, a young man by the name of Craig Cornish. Word is on the ground he has no money. He had a motorcade the other day, and the motorcade had less than 14 cars. And I think 8 pushed into a car. So obviously, Craig Cornish seemed to have no traction. Of course, Denley Penmaki, who seemed to have become a brand in North Abaco for the most part, was not nominated. Let's just put it as it is. She did not get the nomination in the North. There was somebody running in the South, Eva Bain. Eva Bain was then dismissed for someone by the name of Michael Bethel. Michael Bethel would have then taken the South for we talking Abaco now, North and South Abaco. Of course, Edison Key represented the South in the past for a very long time. Word is now, breaking news, Michael Bethel was the person that the PLP was about to announce very quickly as the person sitting in the South. Michael Bethel has since rescinded as of either late yesterday evening. The PLP would have gotten news. Michael Pinder said, Michael Bethel says, how about no? How about no? I'm not interested. I can't do it. And so now the PLP is back to square one when it comes to Abaco. They wanted Michael Bethel, and for some reason, this young man became the headstone in North Abaco. Nobody's been named for the PLP in Grand Bahama. And it just seems as if they know the significance of the North. And so they're being very careful, or maybe in Grand Bahama, maybe they're just trying to kill Obi Wilshire. I don't know, because I can't understand why if everybody said they want Obi. I don't understand what Brave Doors are doing in that regard. But it seems that they're very careful on how they're picking Grand Bahama. And it seems as if something is going on in Abaco. If Abaco and Grand Bahama are what we said they are, why is Brave Davis playing checkers when everybody is saying they can see the chess game?
Well, I would think that he's actually playing a chess game, because essentially it would make sense to not name candidates in the immediate for Grand Bahama and have the smallest amount of time to allow any questioning concerning the strategy that you have for Grand Bahama and Abaco. I think one of the reasons why you may have had not Abaco named was because it was not impacted as the South Abaco as the whole of Grand Bahama. And so the demand for an idea of what to do is less stringent on the North Abaco than it is on South Abaco and the 5 seats on Grand Bahama. So for me, from a political standpoint, I think it's a beautiful strategy than to put your candidates to the wolves to be able to ask questions and comparison be able to be made against the FNM. you continuously let the FNM fail and fail and fail and build upon their failures and build upon their stories of hotels opening and airports being bought and businesses being done and all these other different things. And so you don't have to answer any questions. What you do is you use up whatever minutes you have in the House of Assembly and in the Senate and throw some blows concerning the failure of the FNM.
But they even didn't do that though.
Huh?
They even didn't throw no blows in the Senate and in the Parliament. It just seems as if, is it that in a careful analysis of the political leadership, are you finding that Brave Davis' voice has resounded and he's gotten traction? Now, I don't know whether you're running for the PLP, so be careful how you answer that.
So again, you don't know if I'm doing what?
Running for the PLP, so be careful how you answer. They may rescind your nomination.
Well, I'll be happy to talk to him about it. Yeah, I got a couple of positions I want to hold. I want to be like Keisha Parker with 5 positions, Iram with 5 positions, and all the rest of them. Because we're going to need about 5 ministers, 3 senators, as well as a economic plan that will transform the Bahamas, not just Grand Bahama. And I can rest assured that without any pen and paper, I can give you the intimate details. I would love to work on. As
Brave Davis' voice is resonated in the country, Sea Island. As Brave is Brave overrated?
You see, I judge leadership by the ability to bring individuals around you to get the job done, as opposed to this whole messianic type environment we like to talk about politics. My question is that does he have the ability to bring individuals around him? And I would say he does, having worked with Brave pre-incarnation as leader of opposition. The question is that does, now that he sits in the driver's seat, do the mechanisms of that car, that vehicle, would allow him to bring who he wants around him to achieve what is necessary? Now, I've not been in the inner mechanisms of the Progressive Liberal Party. For full disclosure, my philosophy and my political philosophy was birthed in the Progressive Liberal Party. But I am of a philosophy from 1953. I don't know this philosophy that the PLP currently have. But I do know the philosophy that gave birth to the FNM, which was the PLP, when the Dissident 8 said that they left the PLP, became the Free PLPs, when they too felt that the PLP was no longer following the philosophy of the 1953 to 1950.
I'm concerned on the ground here in New Providence. What has been espoused in the city, that people are very concerned. Almost one of the narratives that's being punched constantly now is a vote for a vote for the PLP is a vote for Brave, and that's a scary narrative because last election the PLP lost under the same kind of narrative with Christie. A vote for you would be a vote for Christie.
No, I see the FM suing the narrative of Brave being Terry Gladstone Christie 3.0. It's a silent narrative. When you look at the number of fake pages that propagate across the FNM, there is a little over 25 of them right now. And I see them silently pushing that narrative. And there's a concept called confirmation bias. And so essentially the FNM is moving towards a platform in the having lack of any ideas for the economic development of the country. Their goal now is to simply market the opposition forces as corrupt, as anything else, instead of attacking the ideas that they may have put forth.
Yes.
If the ideas they put forth doesn't hold water, it's very easy. The FNM has the resources to dismantle it. In fact, the FNM has the resources to actually implement some of the ideas that Progressive Liberal Party has put forward and show that there's no need for them. But instead, they move to a narrative of what I call dirty politics, as opposed to presenting ideas or bringing a reason why we should continue with your unfinished agenda.
Okay, they have an unfinished agenda. They see Brave. They paint Brave as well. However they want to paint Brave, or however they want to paint the PLP. The reality is this a blowout? Is this a wave you see so far, or the wave is not built?
It hasn't built yet, It may be offshore, and I'm concerned. See, the thing that the PLP machinery has not kicked in, and I'm concerned that the FNM, rather than using this as an opportunity to present their idea for a rebuild of the Bahamas, is basically has began to attack the messenger as opposed to the message. And I think this is where the water apathy is coming in, because no one is talking to the messages. They're each attacking each other. And so until the PLP begin to do more than bring a platform of ideas and begin to have some conversation as to not just what, but where and how and who and whatever it is going to be able to achieve these things. If they continue to follow down the FNM narrative, this is why the gap has not widened between the PLP and the FNM, is because the PLP, who's coming back as the new PLP, has not taken the opportunity to emphasize their ideology going forward to sever the ties with the new PLP that we just got rid of.
But even if there is a new idea, a new PLP, even if there is some messaging, some visionary understanding of where they want to take it, is Brave the voice that you believe can present that? Because and listen, Brave has been my attorney. I like Brave Davis. He's a family friend. I know Brave for a minute. The bottom line is he have the arrow is now pointing on him. Can Brave deliver the message or create the narrative through which people could rally around, or does he have to just believe that at the end of the day, people don't like Menace enough to just get rid of him?
Well, this is where the PLP has the home court advantage. Remember, we say we don't vote people in, we vote parties out. Yes. And so far, the performance of the FNM as a collective has been dismal. Very few people could look at the performance of individual MPs and grade them as having been viable as someone to replace. This is why they are moving around with the whole message of doing the whole concept of attack the vehicle as opposed to the actual message. Just 1 second.
See, I was going to say 1 second. And the show over. The show is over. See, I don't know where you're going.
I ain't going nowhere. I'm still here.
Yeah, the show is over, my friend. Listen,
okay.
We'll continue this on the evening dialogue.
No, but let me just say
the answer quickly, 30 seconds.
I would think, I would say, is the Progressive Liberal Party the answer? And that is something that we have to begin to look at. Is the Progressive Party the answer to the woes and the rebuilding of the Bahamas going forward? And I say to you, we need not look to any political party to be the answer. We are the answer we've been looking for.
In your opinion, getting that kind of look, should someone put a camera on him and say, "Oh, and take your picture"?
No, what I'm saying to you is this. Again, you're trying to.
Somebody's a hell no. Somebody's a hell no. I can't really
What I'm saying to you is this. The party is not the solution. The people is the solution for the country going forward. And the question is, would Brave become the servant leader that the people needs? And that's the discussion that we need to take to him, and stop looking for Brave to save us when we are the ones who must save ourselves. And if you keep going with the narrative, we looked at Menace and we saw he's not the answer. Let's not repeat the same mistake and say we look into a man to save us when the collective intelligence of all of us is superior to one of us.
We gotta go. Gotta get out. See, they playing all kind of music over my head. They're trying to kill me. So let's say, gotta go. To be continued.
All right, guys,
sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, C. Allen Johnson. Everybody, listen, blessing. Al Thompson, blessing to you. Veronica, hell no. She said, hell no. Brave being the answer. Listen, let's get out of here, guys. Until tomorrow, by the grace of God. We out of the access zone.